Welcome to the Get Trauma-Informed podcast, dedicated to unraveling the complexities of trauma, its pervasive impact, and the journey towards holistic recovery and realignment. If your radiance has ever felt muted, like I and thousands of others, you're in the right place to reignite your inner light. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma-Informed podcast. Well, you all are in for such an amazing treat today. We have Mr. Justin Moore with us today. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. How about yourself, Liz?
I am doing well. I am so excited. Anytime I meet someone that is excited about health and fitness and your amazing Agoge, we're going to talk about that as well. But before we get started today, we are going to jump into our first question. I'm excited about your energy. So last time we were talking, you all, the energy was bouncing off of the screen, and I couldn't wait to get them here so you all can experience it as well. So we'll start with, what does Get Trauma Informed mean to you?
Yeah, for me personally, it means that, it's good to understand your background and some of the issues that have occurred to you. It manifests later in life in decisions that you make, to people that you associate with, the relationships you have. And so some of us kind of bounce through life and we don't realize why we do the things we do. And if we sit down and really talk to someone and really map it out, we kind of understand, wow, that's why I make this decision. And, for good or worse, it's good to sit down and understand where you're coming from and where you're going, and not ignore those past lessons. We don't want to focus on the past. We want to focus on the future because we're always looking ahead. It's good to understand why we make some of the decisions we do.
Absolutely. And you know what? I just jumped straight over I just jumped right into the conversation. That's how excited I got. Let's go
Yeah.
back a little bit. Justin, can you tell us just a little bit about who you are and why am I so excited today about meeting you, about being in this conversation with you?
Yeah. So one of our shareholders and company partners is Marcus Ogden, former NFL player. He's got a podcast called Get Authentic, and he's really been great because startups are such a up and down, right? Nothing's ever linear. You're gonna fall a few times, and he talks about that on his podcast. And now he's bounced back from things. I myself have had some ups and downs as well. And it's part of the startup and starting a company. If you know anybody who started a company and they tell you everything went smooth, they're lying.
Yes.
Don't believe it. I'm going to say it just like that, because it is something you do because you love to do it and you love to create. For many years, you probably won't get paid, right? So it's one of those things you do because you really believe in it. You really want something to create. And so for me, in my background, I joined the Air Force at a very young age. I joined when I was 17. I left when I was 18 for basic training. Have a lot of energy, which is great when you're a startup founder, but it's teachers don't like it. It's because you can't sit still. You're never on topic. You're all over the place. You want to move faster. And so I want, discipline problems because I couldn't sit still or pay attention. And so the Air Force, my family and the Air Force decided that would be, they could help with that. And so they'll let you work as much as you want to work, and they're happy to put you to it. So I learned to be an aircraft engine mechanic. So I was a jet engine mechanic in the Air Force. I got sent to Germany when I was 19 and worked on C-130s at Ramstein Air Base and traveled all through Europe. And, it really opened my eyes up to how big the world is and different cultures, different languages, the history of what we're, the world. And so gave me this really cool background about things, and came back to the States, did my undergrad in marketing, then got activated for the National Guard and spent some time in the Middle East, operation, OIF, OEF. And so came back, moved to California, worked in business development and sales, did my MBA at USC in entrepreneurship. They have this incredible program for specifically an MBA in entrepreneurship, where I only had to take one finance class, but I was able to write a lot of business plans, meet a lot of entrepreneurs, both failed, which had the most impact on me, and successful. Because if you have someone explain to you why their $50 million company collapsed and they wound up in a divorce and bankruptcy court, I learned that was ego. That's pretty much, he said it came down to ego. That's why he lost anyway. So lots of stories, lots of things there. Launched a company called New Eyes, which is a augmented reality smart glass type company. We were a little early for the initial technology, But we had really cool product that the VA was buying to help legally blind veterans. So we get
Awesome.
the VA to cover it. Yeah, basically two computer screens up against your face with a camera to make things larger. And so now, since I've been gone for several years, they've really developed into other forms of technology, better glasses, better cameras, things like that. And I went on, my personal interest heavily is in health and wellness and fitness. So I'm a big yogi, love working out. I know the effects that physical health has had on my mental health.
Yes.
And so that's for me, my way of helping people, their mental health is through their physical health. And it's not about the vanity of it or, trying to look a certain way like this. I just know how I function and how happy I am and how, great life feels, even when it's really tough, as long as I'm eating well and exercising. It's, they talk
Yes.
about the fountain of youth. The fountain of youth is just lifting weights and having muscle, right? If you can
Yes.
stand up and you can walk to your social events, if you can stand up and make your food, if you can stand up and stay mobile, you stay connected. When you start to see the degradation, and a lot of times it's the isolation physically and mentally, right? And so
Wow.
people, when they get nervous about falling down, about going to these events, about holding themselves up, they just start to become more, and you look at Mick Jagger, who's 80, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just saw him in concert 3, 4 months ago here in Arizona. That dude was running up and down the stage like his hair was on fire. I mean, that's an 80-year-old, right?
Yes.
So and he's always been a yogi. He's always been an exercise person. Always what we eat. This and obviously he was a big partier and wild man for all those years. But as he got older, he realized, and he talks about how important it is for the physical health, exercise, and staying young at heart. Right?
Yes.
Like that
Yes.
guy's
Yes. Yes.
still so young at heart, and you see some people like, wow, what they do there? It literally is a lot of their attitude, right?
Mm.
Tied to their physical health. Instead of saying, "Oh, I'm too old, I can't do that." Do you think he thinks he's too old? He doesn't think he's too old. Doesn't cross his mind, right?
Right.
So that's one of the things I look at. I'm like, wow, if you just make your mind up about this, it's so powerful. And so I was able to take my background in health and wellness and fitness, and hemp became legal in 2018. I've always been like, my biggest issue is getting enough protein,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I'm 185 pounds right now, I'm a little lighter, but if I was 200 pounds or 205 pounds, that's 205 grams of protein a day. It's a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, if you eat the protein, you eat the carbs on top, the sugars, everything goes with it. And you're like, oh crap! I set out to get my protein. Now I got all this extra stuff, and I have to work. So discovered the hemp protein is absolutely amazing. It's clean, it's easy, there's no allergens, it digests easy in your stomach, and part of our sustainable future. So met a business partner, pulled the cash together, pulled a team together. 4 years later, got a product, and we're out to
Wow.
market. We got a grant from the USDA, pretty significant,
Mm-hmm.
and they want us to help create this, hemp protein isolate market. This basically from scratch, where it could be a main ingredient in our foods.
Mm.
Stem is grown and used for building materials and manufacturing. We just use the seeds, right? So we can make building materials, flooring, concrete, everything out of hemp, clothing, and then we just use the seeds for our protein, right? And there's no pesticides used for it. It's little water used on it. Grows great outside. It's a weed, so it keeps out all the other weird stuff trying to grow in there. And it's just up to 4 times bioremediation, more effective at bioremediation than hardwood forest. So as we grow it, it's grabbing greenhouse gases and putting it back into the ground, right? So it's a sustainable future. It's healthy, tastes really good. Um, we got a really cool packaging and brand around it. Agoge is an ancient Greek word for adapt and overcome. And we
Oh
talk
my
about
goodness.
humans, right? Having to
Yes.
adapt and overcome what we're doing in our planet. Hemp's going to be a huge part of that. And we talk about hemp being the industrial 20-foot tall plant you grow outside that we made paperwork for thousands of years, clothing, sails, rope, all this stuff from hemp, and it's been federally legal since 2018. And so that's kind of when the idea of going into the hemp market popped in my head. And so
Mhm.
it's been a long road, but we are there, and the public's been really open to it, really excited about it. Celebrities, athletes, sustainability. It's really catching on quick. So I had thought we were a couple years behind, but
Right.
I took a step back, spent some time with family during COVID, and really, I think we got the right time. I think we're right on time. So
That is so incredible. I mean, you just dropped so many fantastic nuggets there about the about the brain gut health and how that's connected, you know. And you talked about the mindset, how, you know, well, that positive mindset, that energy. I mean, when you talked about Mick Jagger, I always remember him just running across the stage and just having all of that energy, like you know, like the children, right? If we, and then stay a child at heart, right? And so I love what you're doing with your with the protein, because there's like pea protein and all of these other types of protein, and I, you know, and I don't think that we realize how important our nutrition is to our mental health, how we can help ourselves through the depression, anxiety, the post-traumatic stress, all of this. And that's what the Get Trauma Informed podcast is all about. It's about bringing the awareness, but not just the awareness, but bringing the tools in our toolkit, like protein in our toolkit, exercise in our toolkit, drinking the
Meditation.
right water. All of those things are important for us in our mental health. You know, we have like only over 80% of the population that suffers from trauma, and 8%, well, it's about 70 to 80%, but 8% with PTSD. And you talked about military, and I think you're an amazing example of that. Like you said, you were in active duty,
Yep.
and so we're doing a mini series on the effects in the military with PTSD and with complex PTSD in civilians, and we started to compare those two, and there are so many similarities on how it affects you. But
Yep.
what you just said, a mouthful about getting into that healthy space, you know, and you talk so just to and we didn't talk about this prior to or what have you, but did being in the military, did that affect you as far as like with any types of trauma or anything, or how were you able to overcome that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Everybody receives situations differently, right? So you might be
Absolutely.
on the same situation and it might affect you differently than someone else. And I think part of it is when you're in an environment, and I was a mechanic, right? So I wasn't on the front lines, I wasn't, I have definitely some friends that I have, special forces people, and their situation was different from my situation. But when you're in a heightened sense of awareness for a long period of time, and people that want to kill you because you're in their country, right? And they, a portion of them see you as the enemy, regardless of what we think. That has a long-term effect on you. And then when you see people who've been injured, right? There's a lot of airplanes that I worked on where I had to fly on them, and I would see, troops coming back from being injured, troops missing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you're exposed to, even if you're not. Again, so you really have to understand that was then, that was the situation. What are those past behaviors? How do they affect you? And the VA has actually been really good with mental health. They get a bad rap for a lot of things, but the person I spoke with for a period of time, and I go back, every now and then, but they really give you tools. So mainly what they'll tell you is tools,
Right.
right? Because it doesn't really ever go away. It doesn't ever really change. You just learn how to understand that was then, this is now. And, you're manifesting in your own mind, right? And it's not happening right now. And so, but having the strength to understand that, and, in terms of your physical body, right? A lot of times people self-medicate. Oh, I need a cigarette to calm me down. Cigarettes don't calm you down. They shrink your blood vessels and they raise your heart up. So it's actually, the more you smoke, the more you, right?
Mm,
With
hmm.
the alcohol, it's the anxiety. It's the, your body's trying to get this poison out, right? And it's trying to push it out. And the whole time you're sweating, you're getting this, it's making it more stressors on your body. So, oh, I need a drink to this. No, you don't. It's the opposite. You need to go do an hour of yoga, right?
Hmm.
Drink a glass of
Yes.
water, call somebody in your family that you love, and talk about, when you were kids, something like that, right? Reach out to some support mechanism and not go sit on a bar stool, right? If you're feeling like that, I always look at alcohol as, it's never like, when I was younger, I actually drank a lot, lived in Europe, the whole bit.
Right.
Now it's purely for, like a celebratory here and
Hmm.
there, because I realize how bad it is for my body. And as we get older, right, it hurts.
Yes.
It hurts. you, Even on a good holiday, you're like, oh, I know this is going to hurt for a couple of days. It's going to upset my stomach. It's this, it's that. So, it's kind of all those things, and finding the place to get those tools. if it's the VA or if it's, a nonprofit or if it's friends and family or whoever it is, if you're feeling a certain way and it doesn't seem normal or right, talk to someone, right? And we have a big problem with obviously 22 suicides a day of veterans in our country. And it's, we've lost more people in suicide than we did during the wars. It's by a significant amount.
Yes.
And so, we're looking at, what's causing that. And I think a lot of it is, I'll get back to why I started Agoge is purpose, and this is where I talked to Marcus about this and some NFL professional players is, it's not just a job. Like if you have a job, you work at, Microsoft or Yahoo or whatever, this private company. I worked there for 5 years. I moved up 2 levels. I saved some money, got some 401. I moved on. Right.
Right.
Not too big of a deal. Now I work at Google instead of, Facebook. All right.
Right.
When you wear a uniform and you've played a sport since you were a child and you're used to having the camaraderie, the support system, the structure, the cheering fans, the whole bit, right? And then
Absolutely.
one day the uniform is gone, your key doesn't work. It's the same in the military, right?
Yes.
They prepare us slightly for it, but when you spend that entire time and the one day you have respect, you have rank, you have a number, sports or military, you
Mhm.
know, um, then you're out the door. It's kind of like, wow, I lost my camaraderie. I lost my support system. I lost my purpose. I lost all that all within a short period of time. And so I think that, one of the biggest things in terms of the PTSD and the thing is, realizing when that term of service or that term in the professional sports, college sports have you, when that transition happens, you really got to make sure those people right during that period have a support system, and not
Yes.
just for a couple weeks or a few months. And it's really for years. But, I talk about when the hardest time I had was when I first got out of the Air Force. I was living on couches. My money ran out. I was going through a divorce. Like it was tough. It was all the bad things, no job. And I managed to, land on my feet, get a job after a few months. But it was a very period of time where you're just like, what am I doing here? How did I wind up here? Like, how did I wind up sleeping in my car? Like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
how did this
Yeah.
happen just in a couple of months? And so, um, uh, you know, you got friends and family, you lean on them, and sometimes it's just tough. And so, if someone reaches out and they got an issue, they got it something like they're working on, and as long as they're being, honest with you and respectful, you want to help them out and listen to them and hear them out. And you don't want to enable someone who's doing a lot of, going down the wrong path. You want to kind of steer them
Mhm.
straight back on it. And then it comes down to if your gut health from exercise and food and not, because again, it's fast food, it's alcohol, it's smoking a cigarette, and then you work yourself up worse than it could be instead of getting back to the core reason. And so focusing on, and for me too, is kind of like my fight or flight is off,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Where I'll something and I'll have just a sweat ring. Like I've had
Right.
issues, on airplanes and stuff where I've been on before. And so those types of things where you're just like, whoa, and you're trying to understand why am my heart rate up so much? Why am I so like this right now? And something's going on here. And you learn to work through that and understand and recognize the signs. And even working up to that point, if your mind and your body are much healthier, those effects don't seem to manifest just nearly as much. Because now as I'm older and I've realized these things, and I'm healthier than I was 10 or 15 years ago, I realize I can start to see the signs on that because I'm not hype. I'm not all the way up all the time in the first place.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's what the Get Trauma Informed movement podcast. We have a Get Trauma Informed Facebook group too. It's a public Facebook group, and we're looking for for to be that support system because we know how important that is, and to get the proper tools into our hands. I have to say our because I'm a complex PTSD recovering. I'm say recovering because you're always recovering. You're going to stay in that mode, like you said before. It doesn't go away. And I think part of it is that one, we have to get rid of the stigma against mental health. And we also have to make sure that there's a safe community for people to be able to be safe in and say, okay, I can now accept this is what's going on, but now I can use all these tools that you're telling me that I didn't even know I needed Like I need protein on a daily basis. I need a healthy source of protein, right? Because I've had
Right.
that battle with all the other proteins and like, whoa, wait a minute, we got another protein here. Yes, yes, yes. So I'm excited to try it. We also, all of these tools. And again, we have an event that's coming up on July the 25th, and it's a conversation around the PTSD, complex PTSD, and to put those resources out there to let everybody know these are the resources that are available, and you don't have to do it alone, that you
Yep.
do have that support. And I'm glad you pointed out the
You're gonna have a
camaraderie
tough time
ship.
doing it alone. Just like anything, if you wanna go fast, go by yourself. If you wanna go far, go together, right? So
Absolutely.
that type of thing where you're gonna have to build that support system, a healthy support system.
That's for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, you've already pointed out how has trauma empowered and inspired you? That's another one of our little questions here.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Imagine driving down the road, enjoying a beautiful day when suddenly a tree jumps out in front of your car. Crash! In an instant, your life is flipped upside down, both physically and psychologically. That was my reality. I'm Liz Blanding, a certified holistic wellness and trauma recovery coach. In a time when, according to the National Center for PTSD, the epidemic of trauma is on the rise, 70% of adults in the U.S. have experienced some type of traumatic event at least once in their lives. That's 223.4 million people who could benefit from support on their journey to recovery. To address this, I launched the Get Trauma-Informed podcast in March 2024. Our podcast offers free information, resources, expert advice, and stories of those who have overcome trauma and shifted from surviving to thriving. The podcast has the capacity to reach hundreds of thousands of people. I believe that by partnering with the Get Trauma Informed podcast, we can provide critical support to many more people who need it. Trauma was not their fault, but recovery is their responsibility. And with your support, we can help them to achieve it. Thank you for considering the partnership opportunity. I look forward to the possibility of working together to make a significant impact on trauma recovery. Email us at info@oasiswellnessctrs.com or contact us at 616-320-0703. Now we will return to our Get Trauma Informed conversation.
Yeah, I think that part of it is that you understand how short life is, right? And so I've got this weird drive where I want to experience multiple lifetimes, right? Right. And instead of just, I could never just, and I'm so glad that most people can grow up, get a certain way, maybe college, maybe a trade, and then get a career, to get married, to have a house, and that's there for the next 30 or 40 years. I kind of always have this, like, there's so much I'm missing out on. This life is so short, and I want to see so much and do so much and travel so much. And so I've had a military, 7 years in the military, basically. And I traveled all over the world. I've been to 30 something countries, earned sergeant at 21, right? Learned to be an aircraft mechanic, like all this cool stuff before I was 25. And that's so cool. And then, I managed to get my bachelor's degree in marketing, and I started to learn about business and how the world works and this, and, going to working into sales. And I learned how to do sales. That was my first real job out of the Air Force. And so, I was managed to do as a sales manager. I was going for vice president, and, I lived at the beach in California and had this really cool time there. And my daughter has grown up. She's an adult now, but a lot of times, just hanging out, riding bicycles on the beach, and then moving, into getting my MBA, because the people that I was working for seemed to all have MBAs. And so if I ever want to have a company like them, I need to get an MBA, and you have to, and so I went and did that. And then, a friend of mine's dad decided, hey, I love this idea that you're working on here. I'll put the cash in to start it. Cool. Now I'm an entrepreneur, and, now I started another one. And so, real quick, you blink, you're like, wow, that's 46. I'm almost 46 now.
Right.
I'm just getting started, though. Like, I want to start more businesses. I want to create some great resources for veterans, right? Some that, didn't have the supportive family like I had, right? The reason
Yes.
I'm mainly here is because I had a family support to fall back on. and we stick
Absolutely.
with each other. We bite each other's heads off a little bit every now and then. We bark, things like this, and it's just family and it's love, right? And having back and having that backing has allowed me to go out into that world and to take those risks. Right.
Yes.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the confidence or support system to take those risks. And so now everybody has that, where things are going with what we're doing, the resources, I want to point those back. Right.
Absolutely.
And so when that time comes, to point those back and to find, really, for me, it was that right when you leave the military until you find your purpose time. Right.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's where we want to affect that, because that's where the most volatility, the most change, and we know with trauma, PTSD, things like that, those types of situations can cause issues with people who've been through these things, and because your nerves is your stress is going up, you're put in this situation, and you're like, oh boy, here we go, it's not standing, I'm standing solid ground again. What's going on here?
Absolutely.
And so if we can work to provide that time in that period, um, I think that's where I want to kind of focus those resources when we have them, to point back to that, because it's a personal thing for me. And
Yes.
there's some really great people that have come out, the military, and they're dealing with these things, and they just don't. It's kind of like you come out, and especially if you're higher up and you had a bigger rank and you had all these subordinates and all these people working for you, you have this much level of respect, and you have to act a certain way and be the strong person and be the leader. It's very difficult for a person who's done that to turn and ask for help.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And this journey is personal for me as well. My backstory is on some of our other podcasts, but just going through the accident and actually suffering from trauma from in a family. So I get what you're saying about the support systems, in a family of domestic violence, and then my PTSD turned into complex PTSD from divorce, and then a horrific car accident and rehabilitation. And so it's personal for me as well. You just said something that really triggered me, but not in a bad way, but in a good way, as far as all of the people. And that's what this community is about. So we are looking for people to put hands on, to help to, what you just said, that period of time where you need to belong to something and you need to get have a safe space to kind of figure it all out. And that's what our community is all about, to get trauma informed, not just to become aware, but to see where you fit in, to be able to help the next person, and for us to continue to build that ladder of support. And that's what our community is all about. So we're always looking for, and I always put this in out there in the podcast, that we're always definitely looking for people that want to join in to the community, and also people that want to sponsor some of the podcasts, so we can continue to get the word out to other people and to provide the resources, like the resources that you have, the protein. I love that you're talking about it and what you're doing in the field of using the hemp for the protein. It's something I've been looking for, and I know many people don't even understand how important that is for us as we're in our recovery, to make sure that we take care of our health, our nutrition, and make sure that we have the proper support around us. So I look forward to some of the things that we could possibly do in the future, because I'm excited about the connection. I'm excited about your energy, and definitely looking for your explosion in the industry of protein and health and fitness. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave us with today?
Yeah. This has been, 4+ year, labor of love and project. And basically what it comes down to is the transparency, right? We only put 5 ingredients in our product, so it's pretty lean.
Love
They're
it.
all organic, USDA certified, no THC, no CBD. If you've ever given up on taking protein powder because it just is gross or it hurts your stomach, go to agoge.life, AGOGE.life. Order one of those samples. And the matcha is delicious, the chocolate and the vanilla. You'll be shocked at how delicious it tastes and how easy it is on your stomach. Most of the people that we're starting to have come over and buy from us now are the ones who think, you know what, I'm tired of the way it hurts my stomach. I don't like the way it tastes chalky. I'm trying to eat healthier, trying to get something that doesn't cause any bloat in my stomach.
Mhm.
Ours does not. It's just that clean. So that's my biggest thing, is just give it a shot.
Wonderful, wonderful. Can you tell us any secrets as to, do we mix it with juice, mix it with water, put it in a shake? Ask me
Yeah.
what can we do? Give us a quick tip on how to drink it, how to use
So
it.
we wanted to design it so you could take it just with about 6 to 8 ounces of just plain water.
Okay.
So a lot of times, if I just want the protein, I'll put it in a little bottle, shake it up, stir it really well, But yesterday I had a smoothie. I've got, I did regular milk, 2 big scoops of the vanilla, which is this, the purple one. And then with that, I got 4 of those big organic strawberries from Costco, and I threw them into the blender, fired that up. It was like in and out. I mean, it was delicious. And I know I got 30 grams of protein plus whatever the milk had. So it was a good recovery workout too. So it really mixes with anything. The clumping, there's no clumping, there's no fillers, there's no preservatives. So all that kind of weird stuff in the powders in the past, everything's organic, everything's non-GMO, everything's vegan, and it's free of all major allergens. So no soy, no dairy, no gluten, no nothing. It's just that clean hemp protein.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's amazing. Thank you so much for all of your energy and everything that you bring to the table. And I thank you for the protein. I can't wait to go make me a shake. And you just gave me a recipe. So I'm going to try with some chocolate and some strawberries. And I'm going to give you some feedback on how well I do with that.
You'll love, if you like peanut butter, chocolate, and so you get the chocolate and the orange, banana, peanut butter, a little bit almond milk, regular milk. That's a good one too.
Oh my goodness. I wrote a book and it's called It's Smoothie Time and all non-dairy smoothies, but now I'm going to have to talk about putting the protein in there.
There you go. You got everything you need.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You have been so amazing. Alrighty. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
It's time to buckle up. No more suffering in silence. Our Power Pack journey to recovery and realignment starts now. Remember, you were collateral damage on someone else's warpath. Trauma is not your fault. Recovery, however, is your responsibility. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma-Informed podcast.